Oh, good. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share about Singapore's agri-food innovation ecosystem. I think today we have invited colleagues from the agri-tech team as well, so that they can also share a little bit about the agri-tech strategy and also our focus areas that will give you a more holistic overview of the Singapore agri-food ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, I am having a sore throat, so I will speak slightly slower. But if at any point in time you cannot hear me or you want to raise a question, please feel free to interrupt and also raise your hand. So not sure if we have shared earlier about Enterprise Singapore. So we are actually part of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We have a sister agency, the EDB Singapore, which is a growing like inbound investment into Singapore, whereas Enterprise Singapore works on helping the local startups and companies to grow and expand overseas. Yeah, so some of you may also be familiar with A-Star. There is our national food research agency. So they are a close partner if you want to do R&D, especially in the upstream and low TRL level kind of projects. Yeah, I think the other agency that we wanted to share is actually the other ministry is actually the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment. That is where Singapore Food Agency sits in. We are operating from different ministries, but we actually work closely together on the agri-food strategy. So you probably heard about the Singapore plan of the 30 by 30. So growing our own food produce and to be able to meet 30% of our nutritional needs. So that is championed by Singapore Food Agency. So for Enterprise Singapore, we really want to grow stronger enterprises to help them build capabilities and assessing global opportunities. But ultimately, what is important to us is actually creating good jobs for Singaporeans. So we do want to grow a vibrant economy with very globally competitive Singapore enterprises. So how do we then drive the enterprise development? Actually, we have 4 key thrusts or strategic pillars of work. First is really on the enterprise level. We want to help them transform and grow. And then secondly, we want to strengthen Singapore as a node for innovation and also startups, especially as a global Asian node. So this means that Asian startups can use Singapore to access the global market. And then for the Western startups, they can use Singapore as a launchpad to go into the Asian market. So we also want to develop Singapore as a top global trading hub. And lastly, to build trust in Singapore products and services. So if we talk about industry and enterprise development, how do we help the companies? Typically, we help them with business capabilities. This means it could be in terms of like helping them to improve their productivity, their HR management, their financials, and it's basically all sorts of capabilities that you require to grow a business. And then secondly, what is important is really strengthening the innovation, because innovation is really the engine of growth, especially if you want to go internationalization. You do want to create a differentiated products so that we can actually have a different competitive edge when our companies go overseas. And I think last pillar, which is increasingly more important, is really about capturing sustainability opportunities in a global marketplace. So as mentioned earlier, we welcome any startups to actually use Singapore, our infrastructure and our network as a gateway to Asia. So we have a very good logistical connectivity. We also have a large pool of international trading community residing in Singapore. With that comes also with the financial hub, high quality and global ready workforce. And also a very important part is actually the environment, which is business friendly and progressive regulations. So Singapore actually have 27 free trade agreements in terms of economic partnerships with 65 trading partners. So if you can see from the map, it actually covers most of the markets. In terms of our innovation, we are also the Southeast Asian most innovative country and the top 5 digitally competitive economies. So I will not go through too much of this because these are publicly available information. So we'll now jump into the Singapore agri-food ecosystem. So in terms of the work that we have done to build up the ecosystem and also our priority areas. If you can see from this landscape map, We actually have a very diverse agri-food ecosystem in Singapore. So on the left side, you see a large pool of agri-corporates who actually trade their agri-commodities through Singapore. And then we have agri-tech startups as well. They are providing solutions to the agri-corporates as also the farmers in the region. And then on the right, you will see food manufacturing companies. So these are the one that is processing and value adding to the inputs. So typically in the area of like meat processing, seafood processing, and then producing them into like Asian cooked food, Asian sauces, confectionery snacks, as well as beverages. On the most right hand, you will see very strong supporting industries. So we have the top 5 global flavor houses in Singapore. We also have our own local flavor house, which is KH Roberts. On the ingredients companies, all of them has at least a regional HQ or R&D center based in Singapore as well. And then for the food tech startups, I think that is where we classify them into 3 different areas. One is in terms of functional foods and ingredients, so developing more nutritional product for the market. And the second area is alternative foods. So we have moved on from alternative proteins because the technology can also be applied to develop other high value ingredients and also, for example, lipids and fats. So we don't call it alternative proteins anymore. So food is a more encompassing term. And then lastly, you will see food side stream valorization and processing. So this is a bit more unique to Singapore because our side streams are different from the agricultural nations. Our side streams are coming from the food processing and food manufacturing. So for example, the largest waste stream is actually okara. So that is from soybean manufacturing. Yeah, this is quite common in countries like China, Japan, as well as Singapore, Malaysia. At the bottom, these are really the partners that we work very closely with, research institutes that support our companies on innovation and R&D. So you will see the top 3 universities, National University of Singapore, Nanyang Technological University, and the Singapore Institute of Technology. So these are the 3 public universities. So we also collaborate with A-STARS, but one particular A-STAR institute that we call out here is actually in terms of a clinical nutrition research center, because they focus on Asian phenotype and Asian food. Hence, I think for us, companies who are interested in the Asian market and going into Asian consumers, they can actually use Singapore infrastructure to further adapt their product for the consumers in this region. We also have the polytechnics. So these are the ones that are supporting in terms of application research and translation of the R&D. So they typically work on tiara level, maybe about 7 to 9. So they are closer to industry and they have different expertise in terms of product development, process engineering. On the bottom right, you will see a group of ecosystem partners that we call accelerators and incubators. So they really support the agri-food tech startups to help to nurture them, provide them with mentorship. And some of them actually provide launchpad for global startups as well. So for example, Grow that you see here, they actually work with international partners to receive the overseas startups and help them co-locate in Singapore and set up in Singapore. So I think I won't go through too much in terms of the mega trends that are driving the transition of global food system, because I think we are all very familiar but about the growing population. I think for us, what is interesting is really the demographic shift in Asia, because the elderly population will increase from 10% to 16%. And alongside with that is also an emerging middle class with higher purchasing power in Asia. So we thought this is an opportunity that could be interesting to the overseas companies. From the food tech perspective, these are the areas that we have identified to be quite important. So health and wellness is definitely one. Then we have sustainable consumption and alternative foods. If we break it down into more deep dive or more focus areas, we are looking at stratified nutrition with 2 focus areas, which is food for elders and children nutrition. So these are areas where our food companies can actually play in to provide food and solutions to this specific group of consumers. Food gut microbiome is also an important area, which is of emerging importance. We see a lot more R&Ds that are palming into food gut microbiome. even though the timeline is slightly longer, maybe a 5 to 10 years to actually see the translation of the research. But we think that this area is important for Singapore and the region. And then the third area, alternative food, as I explained earlier on, now going beyond protein to also lipids and high value ingredients, side stream valorization and sustainable food packaging. So from the food tech angle, they are also aligned to the thematic focus that I mentioned earlier. So these are some of the examples of startups that we have in Singapore under each of the pillar. And also one or two examples in terms of the companies and the scale of investment that we have received. So you probably heard of Next Gen Foods, that is the company behind Tindo. So they are actually a Singapore-based company, but of course they export globally. From food side stream valorization, we have a relatively new startup called Prefer. So they actually do beanless coffee, and they ferment the coffee from the side streams in Singapore, such as bread, okara. So it's really a very sustainable and a closed loop kind of solution. And the last category on nutrition, we have a company called Alchemy Food Tech. We have a fiber blend that can actually lower glycemic index of a carbohydrate-based food. So I will go more specifically into this particular platform called Food Innovate that we have formed with the multi-agency to give you an illustration of how the whole of government actually come together to support and transform the food industry. So the focus is on food tech, but I think later on Shui will also share in terms of the agri-tech perspective and how we intend to adopt a similar kind of approach to grow the agri-tech ecosystem. So Food Innovate is a whole of government platform. If you can see from the bottom here, so these are the agencies that are involved in this whole of government platform. We have A-Star, EDB, Enterprise Singapore, Singapore Food Agency. IPI is an innovation partner for Impact. So their role is like a technology broker, where they support companies to actually identify technologies that can problem solve their issues. We have JTC here. They are actually the industrial landlord. So how do we work with them is in terms of the shared infrastructure strategy, which I will share later on. So the whole idea of this Food Innovate is really to equip Singapore companies with resources to create food for the future. And our aim is to position Singapore as a location of choice if you want to do create future food for Asia. So it will become a top of mind and a natural kind of consideration if you want to expand into Asia. So we have 4 key strategies under this whole of government platform. First of all, really building the knowledge base. I mean, there are a lot of information, knowledge that are across the industry and the government, but how do we actually share them across? And also with the corporate startups, IHRs and RIs to form a community and to encourage the organic sharing of information. And secondly is actually creating platform to drive local and international co-innovation. This could be in terms of like R&D collaboration or industry collaboration so that we can develop new technology and new solutions for the market. The third pillar on cultivating disruptive tech, that is very specific to the startups. So what we want to do is actually to create a strong and vibrant ecosystem, not just to grow the local food tech startups, but also to grow and attract international startups to come to Singapore for test bedding, R&D, and pilot scale-up. And then lastly, I think the pillar that is quite important to Singapore is shared infrastructure. So over the years, since 2018, we have developed a network of shared infrastructure to encourage company to actually trial new ideas and accelerate the commercialization rate of new products. So in the next slide, I will actually share with you the network of shared infrastructure over the next 2 slides. Yeah. So I'll go a bit deeper into each of the strategy that I mentioned earlier on. So building knowledge base. We actually help company to access the market info in Asia, because I think for Asia, there's not a lot of market insights that are available on Euromonitor, Mintel, etc. So we do have our own partners as well who can actually share insights with companies. We also develop competitions and also open innovation challenge to help build innovation capabilities in our companies. For some of this innovation challenge, it was also about a cross-border collaboration. So we work with Monash University in Australia over a period of 3 years to actually support Singapore food companies to develop new technology, new food products for the Australian market. Of course, some of the partners that you see here, like Ingredient Mintel, they are our knowledge partner, where they share information about our thematic areas that we see opportunities for our company. So like Silver Age, functional food, sugar reduction, upcoming is about salt reduction as well. Okay. On the right side is about co-innovation platforms. So that is where we create platform consortiums for companies, government, academia, overseas partners to actually come together and collaborate. So for example, we actually had a platform called the Asia's Great Snack Challenge, which is like a crowdsourcing platform to call for ideas from the public about any snacks ideas that they may have, which could be commercialized by our food manufacturing companies as with specific thematic focus areas, such as indulgence, health and wellness, elderly, and also sustainability. Then on the food for elders side, we have consortiums that we bring together hospitals, nursing homes, research institutes, and food manufacturing companies to co-develop products and solutions for the local institutions. So for the startup part, I think we have already mentioned about accelerators. We also have corporate VCs and also the ecosystem partners that we work with to support the startups with their talent needs, financing needs, as well as their infrastructure needs. We have platforms like SIAL, the Singapore International Agri-Food Week that you will be attending. There is also the Future Food Asia that happens annually about June every year. So if you're interested to meet more agri-food tech startups in the region, you can actually come for the event as well. And then on the shared infrastructure, I will elaborate further with actually quite a comprehensive map that my team put together. So Singapore is really not huge. So we want to minimize duplication of assets where possible. So that is where we work with partners to actually open up their shared infrastructure or facility to be accessed by the startups and food manufacturers who are keen. So I would just highlight a few of them which could be of interest to you. For example, on the left, second one, you will see Scale Up Bio. So that is a relatively new addition to the network. It's a facility by ADM and Nurasa, and it provides precision fermentation capacity up to 10,000 liters. So for precision fermentation.
And this is fermentation, precision fermentation. Okay.
So companies that are keen to test bed and scale up their precision fermentation technology, they can engage Scale Up Bio as a CDMO to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
So on the other hand, at the Nurasa, which you will be visiting when you come over in November, they have a smaller scale of a precision fermentation tank at about, I think, 1,000 liters. Yeah. So that you will see it when you come over. Yeah. So besides precision fermentation, this Kreml Sustainable Foods is a collaboration between Nurasa and Kreml. They actually provide industrial scale high moisture extrusion to support companies on CDMO from plant-based meat analog. So I think another one that I will highlight is Innovate 360. So they are an incubator with shared facility and co-working space. So if you have any startups who are keen to come to Singapore, this could potentially be a space where they can actually plug and play. So they can set up easily besides Nurasa.
And this is just the offices, or is this also a production facility?
They have both because they are a food manufacturing company by itself. So they have the food manufacturing license. If you want to do a small production space, you can definitely do that.
So that's interesting. So they are a manufacturing, a production food company that hosts startups.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. So if you want, you can actually visit them as well when you come over for sale as part of
that would be interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So for this food manufacturer, they actually produce rock sugar, which is very unique. There is the only rock sugar manufacturer in Singapore. Yeah, so the company is managed by a second generation who is very progressive. So he actually went on to set up Innovate 360 to support the startups. So I think the other one that we'll probably highlight is actually a KH Robert. So this is the flavor company that I mentioned earlier on. So they also have a pilot plant in their facility, and they collaborate with many of the startups and food manufacturers on product innovation. And they have a Live-Streeze high moisture extrusion machine as well. So I mean, in terms of like the facilities, we do really have that first class kind of infrastructure. And Singapore is really not huge, which is where company can easily move from one shared infrastructure to another one to complete the process. So food plant at Senoko Food Hub, so they are a more complete kind of small batch production facility with a range of equipment for different kind of products, including your twin screw extruder, pulse electric field, UHT machines, spray dryer, retort, and other kind of manufacturing infrastructure. Is there any specific partners that you would like to ask about from anyone? Alexander and Elena as well.
I think it's really interesting to maybe see the Innovate 360. I think this is something, you know, at least for us, we're trying to create that bonding between the large facilities and the startups. So that would be very interesting for us, at least.
I think we can provide the contact details, and then, if you would like to meet them during the week, that is possible.
Perfect.
We actually met last year many of these operators when we visited Singapore with our food companies together with Business Sweden. And for example, this Nurasa place is very interesting. Our companies were really impressed by that those facilities, what has been built for them to sort of to rent. So that was a very interesting concept.
May I ask you, have you there been any further contact between the ones visiting Nurasa and your companies in Finland?
I don't think so, or at least I don't know, but they were sort of interested in the concept. And because there was with us last year one company who actually didn't tell it at the time, but they were just building similar type of premises to Eastern Finland, and they sort of launched them in December. So for them, it was especially interesting to see that they were actually creating themselves something similar. But Nurasa was already up and running. So.
No, thank you for providing this overview. It's very interesting and sort of hands-on, and can give you an idea of what facilities there are, etc. I mentioned our biotech heights facilities. They're also having similar things, and hopefully they will also join for the trip, and we'll see what they are interested in as well.
Sure.
Great. One other question I had, I can see that there's a Bureau and Givaudan partnership there. I know that in Switzerland they have the Cultured Hub, which focuses on cultured meat, together with Migros, and this is not specifically for biotechnology for cultured meat. This is for extrusions.
Yeah. For the particular center here in Singapore is focusing on extrusion for plant-based.
Okay, that's also interesting. Okay, I think maybe I'll touch base with you on a couple of things that I'd be happy to meet with. If we can do that.
Yeah, so if any of you is interested to connect with any of the partners, feel free to reach out to us, and we can certainly do that introduction.
Great.
Okay, so now I will actually hand over to my colleague Shu Yi, who actually share a bit more about agri-tech ecosystem, which may be of interest to some of your countries as well. Shu Yi, please.
Thank you, Angeline. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm happy here to share a bit more about agri-tech ecosystem. It's a relatively younger and smaller one as compared to the food tech sector that Angeline has just described. And a lot of it, we are also learning on how to kickstart this ecosystem in our very small Singapore island that has less than 1% of our land being used for agriculture. As you know, we are situated in a region in Southeast Asia where food system is one of the most vulnerable to climate change. And this conversation is really picking up every year as we notice that the food prices continue to rise because of how climate has been impacting the supply and then the demand of some of the commodities as well as the crops. So of course, some of the statistics includes, Southeast Asia supplies 40% of the world's rice export, and we are seeing a gradual decline in our exports. The region is going to be very affected by flooding, and overall that will lead to a lot of economic impact on the communities around our region. And that's where we see the economic opportunities for Singapore to play and really how our solutions can help to solve some of the regional agriculture challenges. So looking at the focus of our sector, our vision really is to establish Singapore as an innovation hub for agri-tech, hoping to lead the transition to a more climate resilient agriculture system. Our focus is very much on the upstream technology, which has strong commerciality as well as are able to speak directly to the climate impact. We have identified inputs particularly in the space of bio-based additive system and solutions, in the space of precision agriculture, as well as post-harvest solution as 3 pillars that we are currently focusing on. The identification of these 3 subsectors is really looking into what Singapore is strong in, what are some of our existing capabilities that we can help to solve the agriculture system. So on the bio-based side, we are really tapping into the biotechnology R&D ecosystem that our bioscience sector has built up. Increasingly, we are seeing a lot more of an application into agri-food side. On the system and solution provider is really based on our very strong engineering base of research as well as institute in Singapore. Moving forward also, Singapore has also put forth a very grand plan in driving the AI development in our nation. And really this precision agriculture will be able to tap on both this hardware development as well as the software development of the domain and apply that to agriculture. Lastly, on the post-harvest solution, really what we see this as is the enabling platforms that will help to accelerate the adoption of agri-tech solutions in the region. I guess one of the key challenges in whatever solutions that we Singapore has been trying to develop is really talking down to the adoption of the technology. And some of the challenges is because of the landscape regionally is still smallholder landscape, and these farmers do not have the financial as well as the knowledge to adopt some of this technology. And we are trying to figure out how do we bring these technology that we develop to put it into their hands and enable them to improve their farming practices. And we see that some of the key enablers would be this platform solution provider and increasingly also carbon accounting related services that will also help to increase the revenue stream for these farmers, and that will further enhance them or encourage them to adopt more, I guess, more advanced farming practices. So largely, the opportunities we see again is on the food security for the growing population. The markets that we are looking at is really markets where there is a huge population to feed, where agriculture comprises a very significant portion of their economics. And they are also key exporters to our region, India, China, Indonesia. And within each of these regions, they have their specific challenges. But smallholder farms seems to be the common theme throughout this region that we hope to be able to crack that to help accelerate some of our agtech solution to the region. So moving on, our companies, I would say that a lot of them are still very much in the startup space, in the pre-seed to seed space, but we have been seeing some good successes. as previously identified, a lot of them are actually in the biotech space. Increasingly, we are seeing there's a lot of more research being done in the microbiome space as well. They're looking at how to improve the plant as well as animal health through biostimulants, immunostimulants products, and applying that directly to some of the agriculture and aquaculture industry. For precision farming, right now, most of our solutions are focused still very much in indoor or controlled environment. Moving forward, we are also hoping to push more of them to more outdoor fields, targeting the smallholder market that we have mentioned, as well as sensors, robotics, water systems. I think water system is something that we have picked up as one of the key challenges for both Indonesia as well as India. Simply because of there are many low-lying regions, as well as the scarcity of the water in some of these regions really impact the yield of their crops. And the platform-wise, these will be platforms that are looking at supply chain, financing, B2B, as well as direct access to the smallholder farms to measure their daily farming practices. And lastly, we have all these side stream and circularity system providers as well, looking at some of the, I guess, smaller space in terms of, biomaterial extraction from insects, biochar products, and some mushroom related side stream growth. So our approach to growing the agri-tech ecosystem is very similar to fruit tech. First, we start from the innovation side and then looking at how we can help them to scale in the region. And lastly, to enable them to work with larger partners and bring them to the market. So on growing the innovation capacity, this is the part where we work very closely with our Singapore Food Agency. Since 2019, Singapore has invested over 300 million into the R&D research of food-related issues. While these are mainly driven to drive the food security agenda of Singapore, many of the research actually has applicability to the region as well. Using the Singapore Food Story R&D Fund, we have been focusing research on genetics and breeding, and specifically in the tropical marine species. For agriculture input, a lot of it is focused on our indoor farming systems, as well as the plant type for Asian palate. Those will be our Asian leafy greens. We also have been looking at some of the nutritional qualities of our fishes as well as our vegetables. We have also set up the innovation centers to drive some of this R&D. Moving on, of course, we are also expanding our collaboration in our R&D with other overseas IHLs as well. Some of the examples are listed here. For example, the partnership with MIT on precision agriculture that focuses on some of the nanosensors, carriers, and sensing technology for seed quality monitoring. Just last year during SIAL, we announced the MOU with Syngenta to looking at more in-depth research for breeding tropical vegetable varieties in our region. We have also, worked with our IHLs and also have collaboration with Wagamiko to have more in-depth research into indoor farmings and the plant types. For aquapolis, we have been trying to drive the research into tropical marine species, specifically the Asian sea bass. Last year, we also announced the partnership under the Aquapolis program, where we bring together many of the overseas researchers and local researchers together with industry partners to look at a suite of research targeted at improving the quality and also the farming practices of Asian sea bass in Singapore. Yeah. Of course, then this is the part where we talk about our solutions having that relevance to the region, where we do look at how can we help some of our startups that are in the region to scale. We leverage our strong IP system to support the company so that we can help to protect, manage, and commercialize their IP assets. And this will give them a sense of competitive edge as well as ease of mind when they deploy their solution regionally. We recognize that we need test bedding infrastructure, and the test bedding infrastructure that we have in Singapore is, I would say, right now relatively limited. Unlike what the food tech sector has built up, we are still at the baby stage. As mentioned earlier, we have started partner with some of our institutes of higher learning to set up Center of Innovation, including the Urban Agriculture Center of Innovation, as well as the Aquaculture Innovation Center. We have also worked with partners, some of our ecosystem partners, to provide some of our more community-like test bed facilities that will allow more general or young startup to test some of their facilities. Maybe stepping into the next slide, just to showcase one of these facilities that we have mentioned is actually Vida City. So it was a new initiative that we started with, trying to remodel an old school campus that is very near the residential district in Singapore, and transforming into different parts of it into some sort of a lab that will allow a lot of cross-pollination of startups that is operating within this space. So currently the facility house startup there are in the sustainability space, some water tech space, some AI tech, and of course some agri-tech spaces. They have some simple lab setups as well as greenhouses they are provided at a very affordable price for some of the really young entrepreneurs to test bed some of their ideas. That is the very community-based kind of test bed infrastructure. And on the other end, we have the more established one, like our NUS Agri-Tech Center, where they have specialized environment, then a lot of different grow zones that are able to allow very precise measurement as well as testings of some of the recipes or some of the seeds type within their centers. Yeah, so we are still in the very nascent stage of trying to figure out the gaps in the ecosystem and building more facilities. Overall, also in terms of developing solutions for the region, we really also work on depend on our existing program under the Global Innovation Alliance, which I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. As part of the program, we work with a lot of overseas partners to help our startup to accelerate into the market. Through some co-innovation grant call as well. We will support some of their collaboration with overseas companies as well as research institute to try out some of the solutions for the region. Moving on, lastly, very similar to the food tech side. Very similar to the food tech side as well. We are growing a lot, finding and discovering a lot more of the interest in some of the open innovation challenges. Just last year, we have our sustainability open innovation in 2023. We have a very specific agri-food tech focus domain. We also work very hard in our corporate matching as well. I think earlier in the ecosystem that Angeline shared, we have in Singapore, we have many global agri-commodity players. They are headquartered in Singapore. And increasingly, we are also seeing the trend of them moving upstream, trying to do more in the farming regions that they operate in. And they are also coming out with a lot of corporate innovation as well as research in trying to farm some of these farming practices. So increasingly, we are trying to work more with them and help to insert more of our startup into their value chain as well as their ecosystem. So lastly, so overall, together, I guess with the food tech team, we welcome investors, corporate, startups, and entrepreneur, as well as all the think tanks to come together and work with Singapore and help to grow our innovation ecosystem. Yeah, that's all I have, I think.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Shui. Can you please elaborate about the open innovation challenges? What exactly have you done in those challenges?
So I think we will work with some of our challenge partners such as Padang and Co. Every year, I think we will curate certain themes. There's possibility that it will be for the sustainability open innovation challenge. They will curate different domains. And within each domain, we will tap on the network of these partners to reach out and then do an open call for international participant to address some of those challenges that we have identified. And most of these problem statements are usually held by corporates. They are operating in Singapore. That is one version of it. We also do corporate open innovation where we help specific corporates to drive, to help solve their problem statement. For instance, in Singapore, one of our large asset management capital land, they came and worked with us to come up with a whole suite of problem statement across their business unit that straddles between food waste valorization to energy efficiency to just having a more wellness touch point for their companies. So that will be a more corporate specific open innovation challenge that we work on.
Great, thank you. If you have any written information about that and you can share it, that would be wonderful.
So we do have a website that is hosting all the open innovation challenges across all industries. We can share across the website later on. Then you can find out more about the various type of challenges that are ongoing and also the past one.
Great, thank you very much.
Great. Alexander, you're raising your hand?
Yes, it was also a reflection of mine when you showed that slide on open innovation challenges. I think that is actually a good thing for us to collaborate on between our countries. I mean, to be able to maybe have joint challenges in a way, or I mean, the whole idea with open innovation is, of course, to get lots of eyes on the problem. And if we can share that across our countries, that could be interesting. So maybe we might get back into this topic in a future session. It could be interesting. I'm also a bit, I mean, because I'm curious about many things and maybe too many things to be able to cover here. But just one, are you running these challenges on your own, or do you have somebody else to sort of manage them?
So I guess, sorry, Shui, you want to, yeah, you can go. So I think depending on the corporate interest, so typically we will need a demand driver. Some of this demand driver may be more experienced with open innovation challenges, so they know exactly what they need to do in terms of putting up a problem statement that is generic enough for to call for solutions, but yet with enough details to actually crowdsource for the relevant tech. So the corporate partners will also need to provide a pathway for commercialization. So this could mean test bedding or a pilot scale up. So if the corporate partners is very familiar, we don't need a lot of hand-holding. But for the corporate partners who are new to Open Innovation Challenge, that is where we need an external partner. So what we typically call an Open Innovation intermediary to come in, and then they can support the corporates by helping them to fine-tune their problem statement, helping them to understand what OI challenge is and what is the expected commitment. Yeah, so the intermediary role is quite important because if you are new to this challenge, you may not know what to expect and how to do it. Yeah, so then we do provide some support in engaging an open innovation intermediary in this case.
Super interesting, I think. I mean, we have had experiences from Vinnova's side many years ago in driving challenge prices and inducement prices in various ways, building on experience in collaboration with the US and NASA, and also in Great Britain there's a organization called Nesta doing these things. So I think it's interesting to build upon. And now we're about to launch some kind of support for sort of similar things. sort of to build on, try to find out these challenges to be able to providing sort of grants for others to find moonshots is what's called. I mean, I would say it's probably similar.
If you are interested to meet some of these partners, like an open innovation intermediary partner, you can also do so when you're in Singapore. So for every Padang and Co. I think you probably heard of AgroRise. So AgroRise is a more global based company. So they also have a branch in Singapore. So these are some of the partners that possibly can support you if you want to expand the open innovation challenges.
Good. Now, and we're specifically interested in the moonshots in relation to synthetic biology, I would say as well. So yeah, it would be interesting to look into what you have done already and maybe what's ongoing.
But maybe maybe some of these partners, are you planning to invite them to our event? That might be a good opportunity to speak to some of them.
Yeah, it's possible as well. I mean, we can do that, of course. If you have specific interest, then for us it's easier. Then we can actually down work with this and their partners at the platform so that we can interest them to come.
Great. So I think an action item for all of us is maybe, you know, go through the presentations again and think whether or not there are some partners that we'd like to invite and maybe discuss in our event.
Angelina, I would like to ask, do you have any more information about this upcoming Lim Chu Kang project for this, what is on the planning level, I believe? So
I can share my understanding first, and then I invite Shui to add on. So for the Lim Chu Kang plan, because it's under the Singapore Food Agency, SFA, actually we don't have a lot of insights into the plan itself. But if you'd like to, you can actually speak to SFA during the week as well, because they are organizing the different activities. So I'm sure you will get a chance to actually see an SFA personnel. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay. I think this is the one slide that I forgot to show just now. So in the middle pillar, so that is where you see the multipliers. So in this case, like Padang and Co, Grow Asia, SG Innovate. So these are some of the intermediaries that we work with to drive the ecosystem development. So Padang and Co itself is an open innovation intermediary. So they are quite an expert in organizing different OI challenges, and typically in collaboration with corporates as well.
They're like a consultancy agency?
Yes, I would say that because they offer it as a service. So if you see level 3 logo there, so level 3 is actually open innovation space by Unilever. So they actually dedicated an entire floor at their building to open innovation and supporting startups. So Padang and Co itself is operating the level 3 space for Unilever. So that is one of the service that they provide as well. And then besides the Singapore International Agri-Food Week, we also have the other regional competitions. So like Slingshot, Future Food Award, AgriTech Garage, and also Global Aquaculture Challenge. So if any of your startups are interested and have the relevant solutions, they can also participate in some of these global and regional competitions to gain awareness.
And these competitions are held by Singapore Enterprise, or is it together with a food company or an agtech company?
The first one that is actually organized by Enterprise Singapore, but there is not specific to a particular industry, so it's a very wide competition, and then the top 100 actually get invited to Singapore to pitch during the Singapore Week of International Innovation and Tech, which is a switch. Yeah, so that is happening in October. The rest of that are actually mostly organized by partners, but we're just sharing because we thought that it's a great platform if your startups actually want to come to the region.
Are they private partners, or is it government,
Most of
private?
them, yeah, like Future Food Asia is organized, a Future Food Award is organized by ID Capital. Yeah, so that is the food tech investor, agri-food tech investor.
Yeah.
So most of these are private partner-led.
Great. I think it's very comprehensive to have everything, in the same place, kind of to understand the whole ecosystem working together, private, public, and everyone. So it's great.
I think that the benefits of Singapore is we are small enough, so it's easier to collaborate, and this public-private partnership really takes a very important role in ecosystem development.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, this will really be my last slide.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Angeline. Any other questions?
Yeah, actually, I have one question for the team as well, because we are really trying to grow our ag tech sector. And as you can see right now, how we have operated in is for Angeline and myself, trying to we are on a quite similar track, but separated by time and progress and our stakeholders. I'd like to find out also more about from your agency, generally, how do you organize yourself for every ecosystem as well as food ecosystem? Do you perceive them as a similar ecosystem and partners that you work with, and how do you drive the different two seemingly similar but different sectors? Just so that also for my learning as well.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody wants to go first? Annalena, Alexander. Aviv, do you want to talk about Israel, the ag tech versus the food tech? Are they combined or not?
Yeah, I don't know if they're combined. I think the food tech is in another place right now. I think it's a little bit different from Singapore because our ecosystem is a little bit bigger. The agriculture in Israel is a huge part of our exports, of our technology developments. We put a lot of focus on developing technologies in that sector, and we have a lot of players, governmental, municipal, you name it, that are in the field, in this field, and of course we can have I think another conversation, maybe just Shui and myself, because I think I'm in charge of the Arctic in our organization, so maybe we can share a little bit information and to see if we can even do a little bit of collaboration between companies or organizations about that.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I think maybe one thing to add to what we've just said, there was definitely a time where the food tech and the ag tech were a little bit different in in their readiness level of technology and the specific technologies. The food tech in Israel was very much focused on alternative proteins. Rather than, and you mentioned it, Angeline, that we don't want to talk just about protein. We want to talk about the whole food drivers, which I think is very true. So the food tech was very, very focused on alternative proteins. We continue to drive that because I think that there is some expertise maybe in the multidisciplinary research in Israel in those areas. But I think that we are kind of starting to bring together more and more the ag and the food and the connections between them. Basically, throughout the whole life cycle of food, farm to table is an old saying. But where's the technology in farm to table, and can we leverage it to make sure that we develop the right seeds to make sure that they have enough protein so that we can extract it more, better in the down the line. So there's technology that needs to go back, in the supply chain to the farm, and there is technology that needs to go ahead, from the farm into the manufacturing, and the ability to scale the alternative proteins is somewhere, definitely on the plant-based, is based on what we can do with the plant itself. So we're kind of starting to converge some of the technology where one affects the other. It was completely separate. I think that we're starting to talk a little bit more on some convergence on that. That's for Israel.
Yeah, for my part, it was about the technology readiness, maybe the differences, but I'm with Renit about it, definitely. We can see the connection between the water tech companies, the ag tech, and the food tech.
I can also reflect a little bit. Thank you for asking the questions. I think it's really nice to open up for a small discussion on these things as well. I mean, very quickly, so I would say that when it comes to the main difference is that Sweden, we have vast lands, and there's sort of a big opportunities for our agriculture in a way, and we also have a really strong industry sector and transport with manufacturing tractors and things like that. So, and also in terms of robotics, we have a really strong robotics sector. So it means that is sort of a big part of the ag tech business, I would say, with precision farming and those kinds of things, which means that they are a bit separated from the food tech in a way. But where they intertwine, I would say, is something that I also thought about during this presentation, is that one of the most, I mean, I'm not really sure when during the presentation it was framed, was when talk about revenues for producers, one of the sort of the different pillars. This one, yeah. So you mentioned financing and those kinds of things. So I would say this is a bigger issue, or this is, I would say, it would be highlighted in a way of our priorities, that we find it difficult for the producers to get enough revenue from their harvests or things like that. So we need to sort of innovate around business models, and also how to sell things, where they are being sold in stores and things like that. And that's where food tech, I would say, comes in a way that it's not really just the ag business. So that's also one part, and also in relation more to maybe to procurement or to policy issues. So that's sort of, in those areas, you will find sort of an overlap, I would say, between these two areas. Yeah. Thank you.
As to Finland, I could just comment that in Finland, this food tech scenery is very much concentrating on, among other things, but how to sort of use side streams more efficiently, and also sort of cross-industry combinations, because we have had traditionally a very strong wood and paper industry in Finland, and now there are sort of innovations that are combining the side streams, for example, from wood processing into new proteins, such like the product of Enifer, for example, a Finnish company using an innovation that was actually already made in the wood industry in the 1960s for the first time to produce protein for animal feed. So that kind of innovations, there are quite a few developed in Finland, combining paper and wood industry and also food tech. So, and as to the as to the cellular technology, so we are mainly focusing on plant-based products and not at all almost for animal-based cellular technologies, if you think of that. But there is a lot of discussion going on also how to combine this all these new innovations and food tech into the agriculture and agtech, how to sort of match the old and new. So that kind of issues are being discussed at the moment. Digitalization is also one of the strong points of Finland. And as to the agriculture, agtech, so I think it's pretty much similar than Alexander was saying about Sweden, that we are quite good in technology and machinery and things like that. But how to combine food tech and agtech, so it's not so obvious yet.
Thank you so much for your sharing. Now I feel a bit more reassured that we are not the only one that haven't really quite figured out where to put agtech, and that Singapore's situation is, of course, quite unique because we don't even have a domestic agriculture industry or big enough to say that. And really, we are looking at regional opportunities, and that's really something that is one of the main. That sets the playing field for Singapore in how we want to grow this sector as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for your generous sharing.
So thank you, Sri and Angeline, for sharing with us Singapore's ecosystem of ag and food. I think it was very valuable, I think, and very informative. And we definitely would like to follow up on some of these things towards our upcoming event in November. Great.
Yeah, no problem. It's our pleasure. I think this gives everyone a better understanding of our ecosystem, and you will know who are the partners, the valuable partners that you think you will want to meet, so that you can maximize your trip here when you are in Singapore. Yeah, feel free to let us know. We'll help where possible to share contact details and connect you with the introductions. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great.